Hi there. My name is Adam Bamonti, and I'm here today to talk to you about the extinction of the North American megafauna and the debate that goes into it. Before I jump in, I kind of want to explain the significance of this project to me. Growing up, I always was fascinated with animals of the past. I loved the dinosaurs. I wanted to be a paleontologist when I was younger. And so when given the opportunity to research some of these animals, I jumped at the opportunity. It was exciting for me. I'll get into some what the animals were, and I think you'll see why I was so excited. But this kind of stuff, these animals that walked the earth before we did, that sort of shaped how the ecosystem is today, have always sort of piqued my interest. So I'm very excited to get to share with you my findings on the subject. So just for some background, what are, or were, I guess, the North American megafauna? So they were basically animals around during the Pleistocene epoch, which was in the Cenozoic era. And that epoch is actually the one before ours currently. It spanned from 2.5 million years ago, roughly, to 11,700 years ago, roughly. Now, the animals that are part of this extinction, you'll notice a theme when I read them off, but here are some of the bigger ones. So we have giant sloths, various saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, yes, like the ones in Game of Thrones, mammoths and mastodons, giant beavers, and giant armadillos. The theme there, if you couldn't quite pick up on it, is that they're all giant, which is in the name megafauna. They're all incredibly large animals compared to what we have today, especially like for sloths and armadillos and things like that. This extinction happened about 12,700 years ago. So again, relatively recently in terms of how old the Earth is. However, the cause for this extinction has been a debate amongst the science community, and that's sort of what I investigated today, because there are a few differing theories and hypotheses that conflict with each other and have led to debate. So, like I said, the two main theories, I should say, for this extinction are human intervention and hunting, which is called the overkill hypothesis, which we'll get into in a second, but that was first presented by Paul Martin about half a century ago. And the other one is climate change, and more specifically, the warming of the Earth after the Ice Age. So these are the two main ones. And I'm just going to jump right into the first theory, which is human intervention, and more specifically, Paul Martin's overkill hypothesis. Paul Martin is a geoscientist who presented this theory roughly 40 years ago, and he utilized radiocarbon dating, or it's put in simple terms, carbon dating, or just carbon-14. And if you don't know, carbon dating is basically it involves dating organic materials such as bones, and as they decay, you track how much carbon-14 is left, so you can tell the age of the fossil you're looking at. So basically, what happened with Paul Martin is that he noticed an overlap in the dates of extinction of the megafauna, as well as the first humans entering North America via ice bridges. So, for some background on that, the Pleistocene epoch saw the first real evolution of Homo sapiens into humans, and the first humans entered North America roughly 15,000 years ago, which is ironically right around the end of the most recent glacial maximum, or glacial period, which I'll get into in the climate change section. But what Martin's theory was that he found mammoth and mastodon bones that had been seemingly chipped or marked like they were hunted, like from spears. And these are from specifically Clovis people, they're called, and the Clovis theory. And so from these mammoth and mastodon bones that he found, he deduced that these animals were in fact hunted to extinction, which has its merits but also has its faults. The two animals that he claimed were hunted to extinction were the mastodon and the mammoth, like I said, and that has actually been decently accepted. However, the issue with that is it doesn't account for all the animals that went extinct. Roughly 36 of them total went extinct. So if two of them can only be proven to be hunted to extinction, that leaves sort of a gaping hole for the other 34 that weren't showing signs of chipped bones or being stabbed or things like that or hunted. So it's great for the mammoth and the mastodon, but it doesn't answer the question of the giant sloths, the armadillos, the saber-toothed cats, And that question is actually probably more accurately answered by the second major theory that can be found in this debate, which is the environmental impact. So, the Pleistocene epoch saw the Earth's most recent ice age, and the last glacial maximum, which is when the glaciers cover the most ground they can, they're at the biggest they can be, basically, uh, happened between 30,000 and 14,000 years ago, which again, you can see how the dates coincidentally line up in this. So these scientists that are advocating for climate change don't necessarily discredit Martin's theory when it comes to mammoths and mastodons. However, they believe that climate change can answer a lot more questions in terms of the other megafauna that we've seen, and that is due to the Earth warming. So after the Ice Age and after the glacial maximum, the Earth obviously warmed up, and these ice sheets that covered a lot of the continents began retreating, and it led to obviously a less ice-covered Earth, if you will, which, not even coincidentally, led to drastic changes in the ecosystem of Earth. Things like food sources were impacted. Animals weren't necessarily able to adapt to the conditions that they've been living in for thousands and almost millions of years. Birthing schedules changed for animals. It really threw an entire ecosystem out of whack, and a lot of this can be attributed to the food chain as well when it comes to extinction. Because obviously, the most effective way that a species can be eliminated is through a lack of food. And the food chain is a perfect example of that. So what likely happened was when the Earth started to warm and the ice receded and the ground thawed, different types of plants were and weren't able to survive. And this led to herbivores that walked the Earth to not necessarily be able to eat the right food. Now, or to search farther for food, or there's so many factors that can go into it. And now when the herbivores can't eat the plants, and by the way, the majority, it seems like, or at least a pretty hefty amount of North American megafauna that went extinct were herbivores. So when these herbivores, when their birthing schedules change, when the rainfall patterns change, when their food source changes, when they can't eat, that means that also, unfortunately, the predators can't eat. This, obviously is a perfect example of the food chain in motion, or I guess lack thereof motion, because when the herbivores can't eat, the predators can't eat, which means they're both going to die of hunger, which is likely the cause for this extinction, is that the animals simply couldn't adapt to the new climate effectively, whether it was birthing, traveling, eating, hunting, all of that. The climate played a huge part in. And that is the most commonly accepted theory, is that because there is proof that the Earth was warming, there's proof that the climate was changing, the ecosystems were changing, and so therefore most evidence points to the Earth's warming as being the primary culprit of the extinction of these animals. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't necessarily other theories that have been presented. For instance, there's a couple other smaller ones that aren't as widely accepted, such as there's the potential for a meteor that could have caused a mass extinction, which seems to be kind of a common theme when it comes to extinctions in the past. And then there was also a possibility of a hyper disease that went around, but which again could be attributed to the climate change. So at the end of the day, really a lot of this just links back in to the climate. So which is it? Scientists, like I said, can't agree necessarily on what caused it. However, it's likely just a combination of both, with more emphasis on climate change. With that being said, I hope I've been a help in inching towards settling the debate on what caused the extinction of North American megafauna. These are fascinating animals, or were, and I've had a lot of fun researching them.